The transport ship docked with Kepler's rest station with a soft hiss of metal against metal. Marcus Chen stepped off the ship wearing simple gray robes that made him look like any other human bureaucrat. His hair was silver. His face showed the lines of age. And he carried only a small black case. Nothing about him seemed special or dangerous. The station was huge, built by the Galactic Trade Union to be neutral ground where different species could meet safely. Its corridors were wide enough for the largest aliens to walk comfortably. The walls were plain metal, and the lighting was adjusted to work for eyes from many different worlds. Chen walked slowly through the corridors toward the meeting rooms. Other beings moved around him, tall blue Altarians with their crystal-tipped fingers, short furry Gryneks who chattered constantly, and the snake-like Thessians who slithered rather than walked. None of them paid much attention to the quiet human. But the station security guards did something interesting. Without thinking about it, they stepped aside when Chen approached. They did not salute or speak to him, but something in their body language showed respect. Maybe even fear. Chen did not seem to notice. The human staff members were different too. When they saw Chen, they stopped what they were doing. Some nodded deeply. Others just watched him pass with wide eyes. A young human technician whispered to his friend. "Is that really him?" His friend quickly told him to be quiet. Chen reached the meeting room area where a group of humans in blue uniforms waited. They were the trade delegation from the outer colonies. When they saw Chen, their leader stepped forward. "Ambassador," the leader said, "we did not expect you to handle this personally." Chen smiled gently. "Peace talks are important, Captain Morrison. Too important to leave to others." Morrison looked worried. "Sir, the hegemony has been very aggressive lately. Their demands keep getting worse. We think they want war, not peace." "Perhaps," Chen said calmly. "But we must try diplomacy first." "We always try diplomacy first." The captain nodded but still looked concerned. Chen patted his shoulder kindly and walked toward the main meeting room. As he did, Morrison spoke quietly into his communicator. "Tell the fleet to stay ready, and send word to Earth. Tell them the Admiral is here personally." The main meeting room was large and round, with a table that could seat 30 beings. Windows showed the stars outside, peaceful and distant. Chen sat down at the human side of the table and placed his black case beside his chair. He opened a small book and began reading quietly while he waited. Soon, heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. The hegemony delegation entered the room like conquering heroes. They were 12 different species, but they all moved with the confidence of predators. Their leader was Zex Thul, a Vasktar Prime war leader. He stood 8 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes that never stopped moving. His claws were painted gold to show his rank. Behind him came other species, the insect-like hive queens with their clicking voices, the gas-breathing Nathari in their environmental suits, and others who had joined the hegemony's expansion across the galaxy. Zexthul looked at Chen and made a sound like laughter, but cruel and cold. "So this is humanity's great negotiator? An old man with a book?" Chen looked up from his reading and smiled politely. "War Leader Zexthul, thank you for agreeing to these talks. Please, sit. Can I offer you anything? Water? The station has many different atmospheres available." "We need nothing from humans," Zexthul said as he sat down. His chair groaned under his weight. "We are here to discuss your surrender, not to make friends." Chen closed his book gently. "I see. Well, perhaps we can find some middle ground. Humanity has always believed in peaceful solutions." The other hegemony leaders made various sounds of amusement. A hive queen clicked rapidly, which Chen somehow understood meant mockery. The Nathari leader's suit made a buzzing sound that served the same purpose. "Peaceful," Zexthul repeated. "Yes. We have studied your species. You have what? 7 worlds? Maybe 8 if we count your mining stations? Your fleets are small. Your weapons are simple. You have been lucky that stronger species ignored you until now." Chen nodded as if agreeing. "We are indeed a small people. We prefer trade to war, building to destroying. Perhaps that is why we have survived. Survived? Zexthul laughed again. For now. But the galaxy is changing, human. The hegemony grows stronger every day. We have conquered 47 species in the last century. Some fought bravely. Others surrendered quickly. Both groups serve us now. Chen listened patiently. He took notes in his book with an old-fashioned pen. His handwriting was neat and careful. And what exactly does the hegemony want from humanity? Zexthul leaned forward, his yellow eyes gleaming. 3 of your colony worlds. Full access to your trade routes. 20% of your industrial output as tribute. And limits on your military that we will monitor. The human trade delegation shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Captain Morrison started to speak, but Chen raised a gentle hand to stop him. These are significant demands, Chen said calmly. I would need to discuss them with my government. You have 3 days, Zexthul said. After that, we take what we want by force. Chen was quiet for a moment. He looked out at the stars through the window. When he spoke again, his voice was still gentle. But something had changed. Something small, but important. War leader, are you certain this is the path you wish to choose? Zexthul slammed a clawed fist on the table. Do not try to threaten us, old man. We know what humans are capable of. Very little. Chen nodded slowly and placed his hand on his black case. For just a moment, his fingers traced something on its surface. A small symbol that none of the aliens recognized, but Captain Morrison saw it, and his face went pale. Very well, Chen said quietly. I will contact Earth and present your terms. Shall we meet again tomorrow? The meeting ended with the hegemony leaders strutting out confidently. They had faced down the human negotiator and found him to be exactly what they expected. Weak, old, and afraid. But as they left, none of them noticed the way the human guards stood at attention when Chen passed. None of them saw the small symbol on his case that had made Captain Morrison look terrified. And none of them wondered why humanity had sent such a seemingly unimportant old man to handle the most important diplomatic meeting in their history. Chen walked slowly back to his quarters, still looking like nothing more than a tired diplomat. But his fingers never left his black case, and his gentle smile never quite reached his eyes. The second day of talks began badly, and got worse quickly. Chen arrived at the meeting room on time, still carrying his black case, and wearing the same simple gray robes. He looked like he had slept well and eaten a good breakfast. The hegemony delegates, on the other hand, looked eager for conflict. Zexthul wasted no time. Well, human? What does your weak government say about our generous offer? Chen sat down carefully and opened his notebook. Earth has reviewed your proposals. Unfortunately, they present some difficulties. Difficulties? Zexthul's scales darkened with anger. There are no difficulties. You accept our terms, or we take what we want. Chen looked up from his notes. War leader. Surely we can find a compromise. Perhaps a trade agreement that benefits both our peoples? Shared technology exchanges? Cultural programs? The hegemony leaders made sounds of disgust. The Hive Queen's clicking became rapid and angry. One of the Nathari delegates turned to another and spoke in their buzzing language. Chen understood enough to know they were calling him foolish. You still do not understand, Zexthul said, standing up to his full 8-foot height. We are not here to bargain with you. We are here to tell you what will happen. Your species will serve ours, or your species will die. These are the only choices. Chen made more notes in his book. I see. And if humanity chooses neither option? Zexthul laughed, and this time the other delegates joined him. Then you will learn what happens to species who defy the hegemony. The morning session ended with no progress. Chen suggested they break for lunch and return in the afternoon with clearer heads. The hegemony delegates left, talking loudly about how pathetic humans were. Captain Morrison approached Chen during the break. Ambassador, they are not interested in peace. They want conquest. Chen nodded. Yes, Captain. I am beginning to understand that. Sir, should I contact the fleet? Admiral Chen could have battle groups here in 2 days. Chen paused in his note-taking. Admiral Chen is already here, Captain. Morrison looked confused. Sir, I do not understand. The Admiral is at Fleet Headquarters on Mars. You are Ambassador Chen from the Diplomatic Corps. Chen looked at Morrison with kind eyes that suddenly seemed much older than they had before. Captain, how long have you been in space? 15 years, sir. Then you were very young during the Centauri War. Too young to remember the faces from the old records. Morrison stared at Chen for a long moment. Then his eyes went wide. Sir, you cannot be. The records say he died in the final battle. Men, Chen smiled sadly. The records say many things, Captain. Most of them are true. Some of them are necessary lies. Before Morrison could ask more questions, the afternoon session began. The hegemony delegates returned in an even worse mood. They had spent lunch discussing how to divide up human space among themselves. Zex Thule had apparently decided that more aggressive tactics were needed. Human, he said without sitting down. Your people have had enough time to consider. What is your answer? Chen remained calm. Earth asks for more time to consider such important decisions. Perhaps a few more days? No, Zexthul roared. You will answer now, Chen sighed. Then I must inform you that Earth cannot accept your terms. They are too harsh for our small civilization to bear. The room went very quiet. The hegemony delegates looked at each other with surprise. They had expected the humans to surrender rather than risk destruction. Zexthul's eyes gleamed with cruel pleasure. So be it. You have chosen extinction. He activated a communicator on his wrist. Execute the prisoners, he said in the common galactic language. Chen's expression did not change. Prisoners? Oh yes, Zexthul said happily. Did you think your trade delegation from the outer colonies was safe? We captured their ship yesterday. 12 humans, including 2 of their young diplomatic trainees. A wall screen activated, showing the inside of a hegemony warship. 12 humans in chains were forced to kneel in a line. They looked scared, but defiant. 2 of them were barely adults, the young diplomats who had been so excited about their first peace mission. Chen watched silently as the execution began. Zexthul expected him to beg or cry or offer anything to stop it. Instead, Chen just watched with calm attention, making notes in his book. One by one, the humans died. The young diplomats went last, still trying to be brave. When it was finished, Chen closed his notebook and looked at Zexthul. That was unwise, Chen said quietly. Zexthul laughed. Unwise? You have just seen the fate of all humans who resist us. We recorded it all. We will broadcast it across your colonies to show them what happens to those who defy the hegemony. Chen stood up and placed his hand on his black case. War leader Zexthul, you have just made a terrible mistake. Mistake? Zexthul was enjoying himself too much to notice that Captain Morrison and the other human staff had quietly begun leaving the room. The only mistake was yours, old man. You should have surrendered when you had the chance. Chen opened his black case for the first time. Inside was a single item. An ancient medallion made of dark metal with symbols that hurt to look at directly. Some of the hegemony delegates shifted uncomfortably when they saw it, though they did not know why. I tried to save you, Chen said sadly. I genuinely hoped we could find a peaceful solution. Humanity always prefers peace. He lifted the medallion from the case. As soon as it touched his skin, it began to glow with a soft, cold light. But you have murdered children under a flag of truce, Chen continued. You have rejected every offer of peace. You have chosen the path of violence and conquest. The glow from the medallion was getting brighter. Several of the smaller hegemony delegates began backing toward the door. Chen looked directly at Zexthul. Are you absolutely certain this is the course you wish to pursue? I will ask one final time. Will the hegemony withdraw its demands and return to your own space peacefully? Zexthul, confused by the strange light and the sudden change in the human's voice, chose mockery over caution. We fear nothing from your pathetic species, old man. Do your worst. Chen nodded slowly. Very well. But remember, you were warned. He spoke 3 words in an ancient human language that none of the aliens recognized. The medallion flared with brilliant light, and somewhere far away, systems that had been sleeping for 300 years began to wake up. In the empty corridors of Kepler's Rest, Captain Morrison was running toward the human transport ship, screaming into his communicator. Emergency evacuation. All human personnel off the station immediately. The Admiral has activated the old protocols. Back in the meeting room, Chen carefully placed the medallion back in his case. The hegemony delegates stood frozen, finally beginning to understand that something was very, very wrong. Gentlemen, Chen said in his gentle diplomatic voice, I believe these talks have concluded. You might want to contact your fleets. You are going to need them. The light from Chen's medallion faded, but the effect of those 3 ancient words had already begun. Across human space, on worlds that the hegemony had dismissed as weak farming colonies and mining outposts, buried systems came online for the first time in 3 centuries. On New Geneva, a quiet agricultural world known for its peaceful farmers, the ground split open in 12 locations. Massive structures rose from underground. Weapons platforms that had been sleeping beneath wheat fields and dairy farms. The farmers were not surprised. They had been waiting for this day their entire lives. On Kepler Station, Chen sat back down and reopened his notebook as if nothing had happened. The hegemony delegates stared at him in shocked silence. The medallion now looked like simple metal again, but they could all feel that something fundamental had changed. Zexthul found his voice first. What did you do, human? Chen looked up from his notes. I sent a message home. Your execution of our diplomatic personnel required a response. What kind of response? The Hive Queen's clicking was nervous now instead of mocking. Chen smiled the same gentle smile he had worn for 2 days. Oh, I think you will find out quite soon. Your intelligence services are probably receiving reports right now. He was correct. Across hegemony space, communication networks were suddenly busy with urgent messages. Fleet commanders were calling their superiors with impossible reports. Scout ships were sending data that made no sense. The human colonies were transforming before their eyes. What had looked like peaceful settlements were revealing themselves to be fortress worlds with defensive capabilities that should not have existed. Mining stations were powering up weapons that could destroy entire fleets, and from deep space, where long-range sensors had shown nothing but empty void, new contacts were appearing. Ships. Hundreds of ships that had been hidden so well that the best sensors in the galaxy had never detected them. Chen continued making notes while the hegemony delegates tried to process what their communications officers were telling them. You seem distressed, he observed mildly. Zexthul was receiving a steady stream of reports through his communicator. His confidence was cracking with each new message. Impossible. Our intelligence said humans had maybe 30 ships total. Obsolete designs. Weak weapons. Your intelligence was partly correct, Chen agreed. We do have about 30 ships that we allow other species to see. They are indeed built with older technology. We wanted you to feel comfortable around us. He turned a page in his notebook and began writing again. Tell me, war leader, what do your sensors show now? Zexthul's claws dug into the table as he listened to his communicator. My fleet commanders report. They report over 300 human ships appearing near our border worlds, but that is impossible. We have watched your space for decades, Chen nodded. 347, actually. Those are just the ones we want you to see now. The ghost ships take longer to wake up. Ghost ships? Chen's pen stopped moving. For the first time since the talks began, his expression became truly serious. The ships crewed by the dead, war leader. The volunteers who gave up their physical forms to serve humanity forever. They have been sleeping in the deep void since the last war, waiting for the day when diplomacy failed. The room became very cold, despite the station's environmental controls. Every hegemony delegate could feel it, a presence that had not been there before. Something vast and patient, and utterly without mercy. Chen resumed writing. You asked what kind of response your actions required. Let me explain who you have been negotiating with. He closed his notebook and looked directly at each delegate in turn. When his eyes met theirs, they saw something that made their blood freeze. These were not the eyes of a simple diplomat. These were the eyes of someone who had seen civilizations rise and fall, who had made decisions that ended worlds. My name is Marcus Chen, yes. But I am not Ambassador Chen from the Diplomatic Corps. I am Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. I designed the weapons that are now targeting your fleets. I trained the officers who command them. I wrote the protocols that are being activated across human space. Zexthal's scales had turned pale green. That is impossible. Admiral Chen died 300 years ago in the Centauri War. He died stopping the Devourers from reaching Sol. Chen smiled sadly. I died. Yes. My body was destroyed when I rammed the Devourer mothership. But humans have learned many interesting technologies over the centuries. Death is not always permanent for those who serve a greater purpose. The implications of this hit the delegates like a physical blow. If humans had conquered death itself, what else had they been hiding? The body you see is a clone, Chen continued, grown from my original genetic template. The memories, experiences, and knowledge are transferred from quantum storage systems. I have been the ultimate insurance policy for 3 centuries. As long as humanity faces extinction, I will return. He opened his black case again, but this time he pulled out a simple data pad along with the medallion. Would you like to see what your intelligence services missed? The data pad projected a holographic display above the table. It showed a map of known space with human territory marked in blue. But as Chen touched the controls, the map changed. Hundreds of new blue dots appeared, hidden bases, secret shipyards, weapons platforms disguised as asteroids. We have been very busy during our peaceful years, Chen said. Humanity learned from the Centauri War that the galaxy is not safe, so we prepared. More touches on the datapad revealed the true scope of human military capability. Ships that could fold space around themselves to become undetectable. Weapons that could manipulate gravity itself. Defense platforms that drew power directly from stars. But the ships and weapons are not the real threat, Chen continued. The real threat is knowledge. 300 years of studying every species in the galaxy. Learning your languages, your customs, your technologies. Understanding your military tactics and political systems. The Nathari delegate spoke for the first time, his voice muffled by his environmental suit. You have been spying on us for centuries? Chen shook his head. Not spying. Learning. We have had people living among your populations for generations. They are not spies. They are full citizens of your worlds, contributing to your societies. But they remember where they came from. The horrible truth was becoming clear to the hegemony delegates. Humanity had not been weak or primitive. They had been patient. They had spent 3 centuries becoming stronger while appearing harmless, learning everything about their neighbors while revealing nothing about themselves. Zexthal tried one last time to maintain control of the situation. Even if this is true, you cannot threaten the entire hegemony. We have thousands of ships and millions of warriors. Chen looked at him with something approaching pity. War leader, you still do not understand. I am not here to threaten you. I am here to give you one chance to surrender peacefully. The word surrender hung in the air like a death sentence. Chen stood up and closed his case. You have seen our defensive capabilities awakening. You have learned that we are not the weak species you believed us to be. Now I will return to my quarters and wait for your decision. He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. Oh, and war leader, you might want to contact your homeworld. Ask them to check on the loyalty of their human populations. I think you will find that conversation educational. As Chen left the room, the hegemony delegates sat in stunned silence. Outside the windows, the stars looked the same as they always had, but now they seemed to hide terrible secrets in their light. Somewhere in the darkness between those stars, ancient weapons were stirring, and humanity, the species they had thought to conquer, was no longer pretending to be weak. The first hegemony battle fleet arrived at the human border world of Harvest, expecting an easy victory. Fleet Admiral Korthvek had commanded successful campaigns against 17 different species. He brought 47 warships, including 3 massive dreadnoughts that had never been defeated in battle. What he found waiting for him changed everything the hegemony thought they knew about warfare. The human ships did not look impressive. They were smaller than hegemony vessels and seemed to be built with simpler technology. Admiral Korthvek felt confident as he ordered the attack. His confidence lasted exactly 12 seconds. The human ships moved wrong. They bent space around themselves in ways that violated known physics, disappearing from one location and appearing instantly somewhere else. Hegemony targeting systems could not lock onto them. Weapons fire passed harmlessly through space where the ships had been moments before. Then the humans fired back. The first salvo created miniature black holes that swallowed 2 hegemony cruisers completely. The second salvo used weapons that seemed to reach backward in time, hitting ships before the humans had even fired. The third salvo simply made 3 dreadnoughts cease to exist, leaving not even debris behind. Admiral Korthvek's flagship was captured, not destroyed. The humans wanted prisoners who could carry a message back to the hegemony leadership. On Kepler Station, Zek's Thul was receiving these reports with growing horror. His communications officer's voice was shaking as he described the impossible battle. "Sir, Admiral Korthvek reports total defeat. Of 47 ships, only his flagship survived. They manipulated space itself. They struck ships that were cloaked. They seemed to know our battle plans before we did." Zek's Thul turned to face the human quarters where Chen was waiting. The gentle old diplomat was somewhere inside those rooms, probably reading a book or having tea. The thought terrified him more than any weapon. But the reports from Harvest were only the beginning. Across hegemony space, a more subtle horror was unfolding. Following Chen's suggestion, hegemony leaders had begun investigating their human populations. What they found broke their understanding of reality. On the Hive Queen's homeworld of Zektar, humans made up about 3% of the population. They worked as teachers, doctors, engineers, and artists. They had lived peacefully among the insectoid natives for over 200 years, contributing to society and raising families. Some had even married into prominent hive families. But when investigators checked deeper, they found the truth. Every human on Zektar was connected to a hidden communication network. They had detailed knowledge of hive military capabilities, political structures, and technological secrets. They were not spies in the traditional sense. They genuinely cared about their adopted world. But they were also loyal to humanity. The same pattern repeated across 12 different worlds. Humans who had integrated completely into alien societies, while maintaining their ultimate allegiance to their birth species. They were not waiting for orders to sabotage or attack. They were simply there, watching and learning and preparing for a day that might never come. Until now, on the Nathari gas world of Vorthak, a human atmospheric engineer named Sarah Okafor had worked for 30 years to improve the breathing apparatus used by her alien neighbors. She had saved thousands of Nathari lives with her innovations. She had adopted 3 Nathari children whose parents died in mining accidents. She was beloved by her community. But when the hegemony investigators came to question her, Sarah simply nodded and smiled. "Yes," she told them, "I am loyal to humanity first. I always have been. That does not mean I love my Nathari family any less." This revelation was repeated millions of times across hegemony space. Humans who were fully integrated into alien societies, but who would ultimately serve human interests, if forced to choose. The hegemony leaders realized they were not fighting a war against a distant enemy. They were fighting a war against neighbors, friends, and family members who had been living among them for generations. Back on Kepler Station, Chen had indeed been reading a book in his quarters. It was a collection of poetry written by various alien species. He particularly enjoyed Hive Queen verse, with its complex clicking rhythms that translated beautifully into human language. A soft chime announced a visitor. Chen opened the door to find Zek's Thul standing in the corridor, looking like he had aged decades in a few hours. "Admiral," Zek's Thul said. The word came out like a confession. Chen gestured him inside. "Please. Sit. Would you like some tea?" I find it helps during difficult conversations. Honor. Zex Thul sat heavily in the chair Chen offered. My fleets are being destroyed. My people are surrounded by enemies we trusted. How long have you been planning this? Chen prepared tea with careful movements, giving himself time to think. We have not been planning conquest. War leader. We have been planning survival. He handed Zex Thul a cup of tea. The liquid was a soothing green color and smelled like flowers from a dozen different worlds. After the Centauri War, humanity realized something important, Chen continued. The galaxy is full of species who solve their problems with violence. Eventually, someone would come for us, so we prepared. Zex Thul sipped the tea automatically. Prepared for 300 years? Prepared for as long as necessary, Chen corrected. Humanity learned patience from species like yours. We watched how you conquered others. We studied your methods. We understood that strength alone was not enough. We needed to be invisible until the moment we chose to reveal ourselves. Chen sat down across from the hegemony leader. Tell me, war leader, what did your intelligence services report about human military capability? Weak fleets, obsolete weapons, defensive posture only. Zex Thul's voice was bitter with the memory of his confidence. Chen nodded. All true, as far as it went. We did maintain weak fleets with obsolete weapons. We did adopt a defensive posture. But we also built hidden fleets with impossible weapons and prepared for offensive operations that no one could imagine. He showed Zex Thul the datapad again, calling up new displays. Every human colony that your forces plan to attack has underground cities that can support the entire population for years. Every human ship you detected was a decoy with minimal crew. Every human you met in your territory was a volunteer who chose to live among alien peoples while maintaining loyalty to their birth species. The scope of the deception was overwhelming. 3 centuries of careful planning had created a civilization that appeared weak while being impossibly strong. Humanity had not conquered other species. They had outlasted them. But the most important thing we learned, Chen said quietly, was how to wage war without hatred. Our people living among yours do not hate you. They will defend you against other threats. They will continue to serve your societies faithfully. But they will also ensure that humanity survives. Zex Thul set down his teacup with a trembling hand. What do you want from us? Chen smiled with genuine warmth. What I have always wanted. War leader. Peace. A galaxy where different species can coexist, without conquest or subjugation. An end to the endless cycle of stronger civilizations devouring weaker ones. And if we refuse? Chen's smile faded. Then you will learn why humanity chose to hide our capabilities rather than use them. The weapons destroying your fleets are defensive systems, war leader. We have not yet activated our offensive capabilities. Outside the window, stars that had seemed peaceful hours before now seemed full of terrible possibility. Somewhere among them, weapons that could crack planets waited for orders that no one wanted to give. Zex Thul closed his eyes and made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. What are your terms for surrender? Chen set down his teacup and looked at Zex Thul with something approaching sadness. The hegemony leader had aged years in the past few hours. His scales had lost their vibrant color, and his proud posture had collapsed into defeat. Surrender is a harsh word, war leader, Chen said gently. I prefer to think of it as choosing a different path. Zex Thul laughed bitterly. Call it what you will. My fleets are destroyed. My allies are surrounded by enemies we never knew existed. What choice do I have? Chen stood up and walked to the window overlooking the station docks. Below them, the last hegemony ships were preparing to leave. Their commanders had received orders to withdraw immediately from all human space. Some looked confused. Others looked relieved. You have the same choice you have always had, Chen said. You can build or you can destroy. You can create or you can conquer. The difference is that now, the consequences of choosing destruction will be immediate. The communications panel in Chen's quarters chimed softly. He activated it, and the face of Captain Morrison appeared on the screen. "Admiral, we are receiving surrender signals from hegemony fleets across the border. Fleet Command wants to know how you want to respond." Chen nodded. "Tell them to accept the surrenders and provide assistance to damaged vessels. Medical aid for the wounded, food and water for the survivors. We are not conquerors, Captain." Morrison looked surprised. "Sir, surely some of these fleets need to be held as prisoners?" "As examples?" Chen shook his head. "Examples of what, Captain? We have already proven our point. Now we must prove our character." He closed the communication and turned back to Zexthul. "Your fleets will be allowed to return home safely. Your wounded will receive medical care from our ships. Your dead will be honored according to your customs." Zexthul stared at him. "You are not going to invade our worlds?" "Why would we?" Chen asked. "We have no desire to rule over unwilling subjects. We simply want to be left alone to live our lives in peace." The hegemony leader struggled to understand. "But you have won a complete victory. Your weapons could destroy our homeworlds. Your people among us could cripple our societies from within. Why show mercy?" Chen sat back down and picked up his book of poetry. "Because that is who we choose to be. War leader. Humans learned long ago that the way you fight a war determines what kind of peace follows it." He opened to a page marked with a simple bookmark. "This is a poem by one of your own hive queens, written 200 years ago. She wrote about the cycle of violence that had consumed her people for millennia. Each victory plants the seeds of future war. Each conquest creates new enemies. Only by choosing to break the cycle can any species find lasting peace." Zexthul recognized the verses. They were from the reformed hive queens who had helped establish the current peaceful government on his homeworld. "Your people have learned this lesson," Chen continued. "But the hegemony as a whole chose the old path of conquest and expansion. We are simply offering you a chance to choose differently." The door chimed again, and several other hegemony delegates entered. They looked as defeated as their leader, but also confused. They had expected execution or imprisonment, not tea and poetry. Chen stood and nodded politely to each of them. "Gentlemen, ladies, honored beings, I believe we can now discuss actual peace terms." He activated his datapad and displayed a new set of documents. "Humanity proposes the following: complete withdrawal of hegemony forces from human space, recognition of current human territorial claims, establishment of trade agreements that benefit all parties, cultural exchange programs, and most importantly, a mutual defense pact." The Hive Queen delegate clicked in confusion. "Defense pact? You want us to help defend you?" Chen smiled. "No, honored Queen, we want to help defend you. The galaxy contains threats far worse than territorial disputes between neighbors. The Devourers are still out there beyond the rim. The machine intellects continue to spread through the outer spiral. Humanity has dealt with these threats before. We would prefer to face them with allies rather than alone." This was not what any of the hegemony delegates had expected. They had come to discuss the terms of their defeat, only to be offered partnership instead. The Nithari representative spoke through his environmental suit. "What guarantee do we have that you will not simply conquer us once we are weakened by these other threats?" Chen closed his datapad. "The same guarantee you have always had. If we wanted to conquer you, we would have done so already. We have had the capability for centuries." He walked back to the window and looked out at the stars. "Humanity learned something important during our long isolation. Empires built on conquest always fall. The stronger you make your military, the more enemies you create. The more worlds you control, the more rebellions you face. True security comes from being valuable to your neighbors, not threatening to them." The room was quiet for a long time. The hegemony delegates struggled with the idea that they were being offered genuine partnership after suffering complete military defeat. Finally, Zexthul spoke. "What happened to the humans living among our populations?" "They remain where they are," Chen said simply. "They will continue to serve your societies as they always have. They will contribute to your cultures and raise their families and live normal lives. But they will also serve as a communication network between our peoples and as a guarantee against future misunderstandings. The implications were clear. Humanity would always know what was happening in hegemony space. Any future plans for aggression would be detected immediately, but the same network could also facilitate trade, cultural exchange, and mutual support. Chen returned to his chair and picked up his pen. Shall we draft a formal agreement? The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of terms of surrender, they discussed frameworks for cooperation. Instead of reparations and punishment, they planned trade routes and research partnerships. By the end of the day, they had outlined a treaty that would reshape the political structure of the galaxy. As the hegemony delegates prepared to leave and return to their homeworlds with news of this impossible peace, Zex Thul approached Chen one final time. "Admiral, may I ask you a personal question?" Chen nodded. "Do you really die and return, or is that simply another weapon of fear?" Chen considered the question carefully. "I die, yes. This body will age and fail like any other. But my memories, my knowledge, my purpose, these things continue. Whether that makes me truly immortal, or simply a very sophisticated recording, I cannot say. Perhaps it does not matter." He stood and offered his hand to the hegemony leader. "What matters is that humanity will endure, and that we will remember both our friends and our enemies." Zex Thul clasped the offered hand. Chen's grip was firm but not threatening. The hands of someone who had built things as well as destroyed them. "I hope we can be counted among your friends." "Admiral," Chen smiled. "I believe you already are, War Leader." As the hegemony delegation departed Kepler Station, Chen remained in his quarters, writing in his notebook. He had much to record about this encounter. The lessons learned, the mistakes made by both sides, the possibilities for the future. Outside his window, human ships were already beginning to fade back into the darkness between stars. The hidden fleets were returning to their secret bases. The weapons platforms were powering down. The galaxy would return to its apparent peace. But now that peace would be based on understanding rather than ignorance. Chen finished his notes and closed the notebook. Tomorrow he would begin the long journey back to Earth, where he would file his report and return to the retirement he had earned centuries ago. Other diplomats would handle the details of implementing the new treaty. His work was done, but first, he had a letter to write to the families of the young diplomats who had died to make this peace possible. They deserved to know that their children's sacrifice had not been in vain, and that their deaths had ultimately saved millions of lives on both sides. It was not a task he enjoyed, but it was one he would not delegate to others. Some responsibilities belonged to those who made the hardest decisions. As he began to write, Chen reflected on the strange turns of fate that had brought him to this moment. He had died as a warrior in humanity's darkest hour. He had returned as a diplomat in their finest. Perhaps that was what immortality really meant. The chance to learn from your mistakes and try to do better. The letter was difficult to write, but necessary. Like most of the important things in life, it required honesty, compassion, and hope for a better future. Chen wrote late into the night, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, the galaxy quietly became a little more peaceful.